we bring you a book to comment on. Nudge, Improving Decisions About Health, Wealth, and Happiness. The authors of the book are 2017 Nobel Prize winner Richard Thaler and American legal scholar Cass Sunstein. What is this book about? Let's turn the page with glowing examples. At the airport, in the men's bathroom, it is written, "Keep your morals. Stand close to the target." The word did not impress most gentlemen. Most people still do not keep clean, shoot the wrong target, and often later remove the word and just draw a picture of a small fly in the toilet bowl, making them straight. Target more than 80%. In restaurants, displaying natural products that are good for health in places that are easy to download can also make most people choose to download those foods to eat. Americans are less likely to save if the government automatically deducts 10% of their monthly pension, and if they do not want to save, they can apply for a full paycheck. Surprising increase too. These methods are not to force or pressure someone to do something, but if we know how to use human psychology to push people to do something, then most people will make a decision, more accurate. It's like pushing a person's shoulder forward without carrying a threatening weapon, someone to do something they do not want to do. This is called the anxious strategy, which is the title of this book. This book teaches us to make rational and impartial decisions when we face decisions in life. And making the right decision is an important ability. Whether in daily life, investment, or small things in business, all require us to make the right decision. Richard Thaler wrote another very famous book, Misbehaving, which means misguided behavior. If you are interested, we will summarize it later. In the following, I will comment on the main points of this book in two parts. Part 1. Why do people make decisions using emotions? Part 2. How do we use the strategy to motivate us to make the right decision? In the first part, we come to understand why people have to use their emotions to make decisions. In some psychology books, it is said that human decisions are all carefully and rationally considered. But in real society, no one can make absolute decisions using only the brain, but not the emotions. No. Often, your decisions are influenced by many factors that can cause you to make erroneous decisions. And this devious decision is not because you are unwise, inexperienced, or uneducated. But it is natural for everyone to make such biased decisions according to their environment. What is the reason? Experiments show that our brain has two separate systems of thinking. The first is emotional thinking, and the second is logical thinking. The book Thinking Fast and Slow also mentions that the human brain is divided into two systems, the one brain and the two system. A systemic brain is a system that makes decisions that almost never go through consideration. They make decisions quickly and are usually made unconsciously. For example, when you drive a car on the road, when there is an obstacle in front of you, your feet will immediately apply the brakes without thinking. When you hear thunder, you run to safety without thinking. These are the results of a systemic brain reaction that everyone can understand, whether it is a human conscience or a natural reaction. The dual system brain, on the other hand, accommodates slower but more logical thinking and rational thinking. These two systems require us to control and use them, and they also require a lot of energy and resources. For example, you can listen to a textbook while exercising, but if you want to increase the efficiency of extracting this knowledge using a dual system brain, you can sit and listen to a piece of paper and a pen to memorize important points because it takes time, high attention, and analysis. In everyone's life, these two brain systems play an alternate role each time we make a decision. And because two systems of logical thinking require a lot of energy and time, most of our decisions are made by one brain system, and sometimes we are not even aware of it. This means that all of our decisions are biased towards a systemic brain, which is an emotional and habitual decision. So why not train our brains to be biased onto the right and better decision? In this book, many factors are mentioned that can make us unknowingly make biased decisions. Today, we present 3 factors to show you. The first, in the language of psychology, is called anchoring effect, literally translated as anchor effect. The second is heuristic effect, translated as the effect of memory. Third, we will refer to loss aversion, which means the effect of fear of loss. First, we come to the part where we talk about the middle ground. This psychology refers to the fact that when we encounter something that we have to make a decision about, we always take a simple thing that we have seen or heard as the basis for an easy choice. It is like an anchor that is thrown into the sea so that the waves do not drift away from the anchor. The most common example is in pricing. In Starbucks, there are only 3 coffee cups for you to choose from: tall, grande, and venti. In a typical cafe, there are only small glasses, medium glasses, and large glasses. To make a decision easily, we always choose the middle glass, because if you take a big glass, you cannot drink it all, and if you take a small glass, the price is similar, but it is not profitable. But in Starbucks, they only have the middle glass, the big glass, and the largest glass. So we still choose the big glass as the middle choice, and the biggest glass here is just an anchor, so you can easily decide on a big glass. So why did this happen? We have already mentioned that 2 systems of the brain require us to have enough time to think before making a decision, while one system of the brain makes decisions based on experience, emotions, and habits. The brain of this system does not like to think and solve complex information. They just take the old experience to correct a little, which can also be the answer. It's like a pre-formatted file. All you have to do is fill in the blanks. This is what makes us make biased decisions that are easy, but not the right thing to do. To understand some of the effects of anchors, let's take a look at the effects of memory. This rule is easy to understand, meaning that if something is easy to pop into our brains, we will think it is more likely to happen, especially when you are facing a problem or risk. As an example, which do you think is the highest death toll from traffic accidents and deaths from terrorism? Statistics from all over the world show that the death toll from road accidents is many times higher, even in a country as rife with crime and terrorism as Israel. If we think carefully, we will pay more attention to accident prevention. But in reality, most governments increase the budget to prevent the occurrence of terrorism, while measures and budgets to prevent traffic accidents are still lacking every year. Why do we think the impact of terrorism is greater? This is also because it is more widely advertised. Do you know how many people die on the streets in one day? There are an average of 3,700 people worldwide. What about terrorism? Do you remember when the last terrorist attack took place? Because it rarely happens, and every time it happens, it makes the media very interested and reactive, which makes us think that it is a bigger thing than something of which we should be more careful. It is not different from the rate of occurrence of plane crashes. Compared to road accidents, people may be more afraid of crashes But you should know that the rate of accidents due to plane crashes compared to road accidents is 1 in 11 million times. So looking at the numbers, you should be more afraid of accidents than flying or terrorism. This is a time when you need to process two systems of brains to make figures, proofs, and arguments to make decisions, but not based on feelings and tendencies, based on experiences or experiences. Next, we come to the part where we talk about the middle ground. With this rule, we can interpret that the feeling of sadness when you lose something is greater than the feeling of happiness when you get something. This feeling is like when we lose $100 and pick up $100. The happy feeling we get cannot compensate for the feeling of persecution when you lose something. That is why most people choose not to make decisions or do anything. They do not want to change for fear of losing. We take an experiment to interpret this law. A few glasses of water were distributed to a group of students, and only half of the students received the glasses. The students are then allowed to trade freely with each other. According to the latest free market principles, one can get a market value that everyone can accept. But in this experiment, most of the glasses were not exchanged successfully. Students with glasses do not sell, and students without glasses do not buy. What is the reason? After several rounds of interviews with each student, one of the results was that the person who had the glass in his hand, the seller, refused to sell because he valued his glass too high at $5.25. As for those who do not have a glass of water in hand, the buyer refuses to buy because he estimates that glass is only $2.25. Despite repeated experiments with distributing glasses to different students, the result remains the same. If you agree to sell it for $2.25 but can't buy it, you will regret it later. This is the effect of fear of loss. In addition to the anchor effect, the effect of memory, and the fear of loss, there are many other rules that are often seen in economics, such as the effect of optimism on the self, where people often overestimate themselves as superior or lucky, most of them, and so on. This is the effect that makes some people like to go to the lottery to gamble, because they always think they are lucky to have a day to vote, and so on. There is another effect called the default effect, which makes people choose the options they are given, even if they are not the best option. For example, if you go to a coffee shop where the option they offer is a glass of 50% sugar, you are always too lazy to ask for other options and choose the option they offer. Therefore, we find that in everyday life, our decisions are not always straightforward, but are often biased because of all these influences. There is another effect called the bandwagon effect, which says that people often make decisions based on the majority opinion, sometimes not knowing whether they are right or wrong. Obviously, on social media we also see that when something happens, the thing most people do is believe the majority opinion. If most people think wrong, you are wrong. But if everyone thinks right, you also think it is reasonable. But we did not go to find evidence or reasons to analyze before the assessment. The above is the first important point that we mentioned about why people make most decisions based on emotions, but not all the time. This is not because they do not know how to think or do not want to think. It is a natural reaction. When you face a problem, you have to use two parts of the brain at the same time, a systemic brain that has decisions, fast by habit and experience, and two systemic brains with slow decisions and long thinking. In everyday life, you cannot always be an economist who makes decisions based on data or reality. We are just ordinary people in the same society as you. In most cases, the brain is a decision maker, meaning that we work according to our habits and make decisions based on our experiences and feelings. And some psychological principles can influence our decisions, which in turn makes us biased. What if we cannot control our decisions? Then how can we make the right and reasonable decisions for ourselves? This book teaches us to be self-sufficient so that we can make better decisions without allowing external factors and tendencies to be biased. Second, we know that our decisions are influenced by a number of psychological factors, so to prevent it from interfering with our decisions, we also need to have a strategy to deal with it and be alert at all times. At this point, we need to remember that the strategy of anxiety can only help us make the right decision, but it cannot make decisions for us. We give an example to explain this. We all know that fast foods like burgers, fried chicken, etc. are all high in fat and not very healthy. But there are still many people who cannot control themselves and still buy it. As a result, many people become overweight, and it is a social problem when they have various diseases. What is the government's response to this problem? What kind of anxious strategy is used to get people to think a little before buying all this? They cannot be oppressed, create psychological pressure, or make people lose the freedom to choose to buy or use the product they want. Therefore, the government only requires factories to clearly write down the nutrients in those foods, such as fat, calories, cholesterol, and sugar. This does not prevent them from buying unhealthy things, but at least it can make them reconsider when you see too much cholesterol and fat on the packaging.
On cigarette packs, we have also seen such depressing tactics applied, such as the caption, "Smoking is dangerous to health." It sounds so broad that it is written that smoking leads to stroke, smoking leads to lung cancer. And last but not least, the headline made you read this article. In everyday life, what strategies do we need to use to help our self-esteem and the environment make the right decision? In this book, 5 methods are introduced. First, reduce confusion. For example, if you install a glass door in your store, at first, the door is sliding in. But when you install a door handle, the customer is confused and pulls it out. So as a sign that the door is sliding in, you can remove the door handle instead of placing a metal plate to let people know, oh, this door is sliding in. Of course, you can also write capital letters on the door that say push, but this is not a so-called strategy. It is a sign. Second, give people a chance to make mistakes because people are prone to confusion. Even if they are introduced and show signs, they are still confused. So we have to give them a chance to correct when they make a mistake, or make a mistake so that they do not make a mistake. We come to see the USB plug that we use every day. We often plug in reverse, but if the plug is not plugged in, the other side will be plugged in. And so far, the designers of these products have not given us the opportunity to make a mistake. Type-C chargers are made, no matter which side you plug in. Third, adjust to existing options. As you know, a lazy person thinks, especially when faced with many choices and similarities, that he may give up. This condition is almost always a disease that is difficult to choose, so we have to think for him and facilitate his decision, as in the example we mentioned earlier in the book, and then deducting 10% of his salary as a reserve for retirement may make most people aware of this. Save money. Of course, it is not an absolute requirement that everyone should do. If you do not want to save, you can apply. But if you wait for him to apply for savings on his own, most people do not have this habit. So when you go shopping in a supermarket, do not wonder if you have already bought so much. Why do they not give you free plastic bags? Why spend more money to buy? This is because they do not want you to use plastic bags. If you want to save money, you can take the bag from home or put it in a basket. If you are given free bags without asking, then the use of plastic bags will definitely increase. Fourth, provide clear enough information, like the example given above. Give them enough information so that they can make their own decisions, and embed some messages to entice them to make clear and correct decisions. As in the case of some food packaging or consumables, the manufacturer must clearly write down the ingredients so that the customer understands and makes the right decision. If they already know that it is harmful to their health and still choose to use it, then it is their right. But at least we have some anxiety or awakening to them before choosing to use something that does not. Good for them. Fifth, provide quality options. Experiments show that people cannot make a quality decision in the face of multiple choices, so do not give them too many options. The more options there are, the more complex they become, and the more people make poor decisions. We all have experienced when there are too many options, and we finally do not know which one to choose. So to make it easier for you to make a decision, they have created some simple options, such as best sellers, products that most people choose, new products, etc., that are mostly found on online shopping websites. The above is the main content of this book. Finally, we come to a brief review. We first mentioned that in this world, no one can make decisions with all their brains. Our decisions must be biased and tend to be for something that has offended you. Those frustrating factors are inherent in everyone's mind, making most of us make biased decisions about what they want us to choose. So we need to be vigilant. If we are tempted to do wrong, we must diligently awaken ourselves. And if we want to create a product or want to persuade someone to decide what we want, then look at the 5 factors that we mentioned above. First, reduce confusion. Second, give people a chance to make mistakes. Third, correct existing options. Fourth, provide clear information. Fifth, provide quality choices.